And let's continue with the Undertakers from the Jungle Book. What do we have? A crocodile, a jackal, and I believe a vulture called the Adjunct were sitting on the bank of a river talking. Not a very exciting story so far. Let's see what is brought to us as we continue. I'm going to pick up from after the poem. There is one very unpleasant peculiarity about the Adjunct. At uncertain times he suffers from acute attacks of the fidgets, or cramp in his legs, and though he is more virtuous to behold than any of the cranes, who are all immensely respectable, he flies off into wild cripple-stilt war dances, half opening his wings and bobbing his bald head up and down, while for reasons best known to himself he is very careful to time his worst attacks with his nastiest remarks. At the last word of his song he came to attention again 10 times adjunctier than before. The jackal winced, though he was full 3 seasons old, but you cannot resent an insult from a person with a beak a yard long, and the power of drawing it like a javelin. The Adjunct was a most notorious coward, but the jackal was worse. "We must live before we can learn," said the mugger. "And there's this to say. Little jackals are very common, child, but such a mugger as I am is not common for all that. I am not proud, since pride is destruction, but take notice, it is fate, and against his fate no one who swims or walks or runs should say anything at all. I am well contented with fate, with good luck, a keen eye, and the custom of considering whether a creek or a backwater has an outlet. It is ire you ascend." One more time. "With good luck, a keen eye, and the custom of considering whether a creek or a backwater has an outlet to it ere you ascend, much may be done." "Once I heard that even the protector of the poor has made a mistake," said the jackal viciously. "True, but there my fate helped me. It was before I had come to my full growth, before the last famine by 3. By the right and left of Gunga, how full used the streams to be in those days! Yes, I was young and unthinking, and when the flood came, who so pleased as I? A little made me very happy then. The village was deep in flood, and I swam above the Ghat, and went far inland, up to the rice fields, and they were deep in good mud. I remember also a pair of bracelets, glass they were, and troubled me not a little, that I found that evening. Yes, glass bracelets, and if my memory serves me well, a shoe. I should have shaken off both shoes, but I was hungry. I learned better later. Yes, and so I fed and rested me. But when I was ready to go to the river again, the flood had fallen, and I walked through the mud of the main street. Who but I came, all my people, priests, women, and children, and I looked upon them with benevolence. The mud is not a good place to fight in, said a boatman. Get axes and kill him, for he is the mugger of the ford. Not so, said the Brahmin. Look, he is driving the flood before him. He is the godling of the village, and they threw many flowers at me, and by happy thought one let a goat across the road. How good! How very good is goat, said the jackal. Hairy, too hairy, when found in the water, more likely to hide a cross-shaped hook, but that goat I accepted, and went down to the Ghat in great honor. Later my fate sent me a boatman, who had desired to cut off my tail with an axe. His boat grounded upon an old shoal, which you would not remember. We are not all jackals here, said the Adjunct. Was it the shoal made where the stone boats sank in the year of the great drought? A long shoal that lasted 3 floods? There were 2, said the mugger, an upper and a lower shoal. Aye, I forgot, a channel divided them and later dried up again, said the Adjunct, who prided himself in his memory. On the lower shoal my well-wisher's craft grounded. He was sleeping in the bows and half awake. Leaped over to his waist, no, it was no more than his knees, to push off. His empty boat went on, and touched again below the next reach as the river ran them. I followed because I knew men would come out to drag it ashore. "And did they do so?" said the jackal, a little awe-stricken. This was hunting on a scale that impressed him. There and lower down they did. I went no farther, but that gave me 3 in one day, well-fed Mangus, boatmen all. And except in the case of the last, then I was careless. Never a cry to warn those on the bank." "Ah, noble sport! But what cleverness and great judgment it requires," said the jackal. "Not cleverness, child, but only thought. A little thought in life is like salt upon rice, as the boatmen say. And I have thought deeply always. The Gavale, my cousin, the fish-eater, has told me how hard it is for him to follow his fish, and how one fish differs from the other, and how he must know them all, both together and apart. I say that is wisdom. But on the other hand, my cousin, the Gavale, lives among his people. My people do not swim in companies with their mouths out of the water, as Rawa does, nor do they constantly rise to the surface of the water and turn over on their sides, like Mohu and little Chapta, nor do they gather in shoals after flood, like Bachua and Shilwa." "Are all very good eating," said the adjunct, clattering his beak. "So my cousin says, and makes a great to-do over hunting them. But they do not climb the banks to escape his sharp nose. My people are otherwise. Their life is on the land, in the houses, among the cattle. I must know what they do, what they are about to do, and adding the tail to the trunk, as the saying is, I make up the whole elephant. Is there a green branch and an iron ring hanging over a doorway? The old mugger knows that a boy has been born in that house, and must some day come down to the Ghat to play. Is a maiden to be married? The old mugger knows, for he sees the men carry gifts back and forth, and she too comes down to the Ghat to bathe before her wedding, and he is there. Has the river changed its channel and made new land where there was only sand before? The mugger knows." "Now, of what use is that knowledge?" said the jackal. "The river has shifted, even in my little life. Indian rivers are nearly always moving about in their beds, and will shift sometimes as much as 2 or 3 miles in a season, drowning the fields on one bank and spreading good silt on the other." "There is no knowledge so useful," said the mugger, "for new land means new quarrels. The mugger knows, oh ho, the mugger knows. As soon as the water is drained off, he creeps up the little creeks that men think would not hide a dog, and there he waits. Presently comes a farmer saying he will plant cucumbers here and melons there, in the new land the river has given him. He feels the good mud with his bare toes. Anon comes another saying he will put onions and carrots and sugar cane in such and such places. They meet us, boats adrift meet, and each rolls his eye at the other under the big blue turban. The old mugger sees and hears. Each calls the other brother, and they go to mark out the boundaries of the new land. The mugger hurries with them from point to point, shuffling very low through the mud. Now they begin to quarrel, now they say hot words, now they pull turbans, now they lift the lathis clubs, and at last one falls backwards in the mud and the other runs away. When he comes back, the dispute is settled, as the iron-bound bamboo of the loser witnesses. Yet they are not grateful to the mugger. No, they cry murder, and their families fight with sticks 20 aside. My people are good people, upland Jats, Malawais, and Bet. They do not give blows for sport, and when the fight is done, the old mugger waits far down the river out of sight of the village, behind the kicker scrub yonder. Then come they down, my broad-shouldered Jats, 8 or 9 together under the stars, bearing the dead man upon a bed. They are old men with grey beards and voices as deep as mine. They light a little fire, ah, how well I know that fire, and they drink tobacco, and they nod their heads together forward in a ring, or sideways toward the dead man upon the bank. They say that English law will come with a rope for this matter, and that such a man's family will be ashamed because such a man must be hanged in the great square of the jail. They say the friends of the dead. Then say the friends of the dead, "Let him hang!" And the talk is all to do over again, once, twice, 20 times in the long night. Then says one at last, "The fight was a fair fight. Let us take blood money, a little more than is offered by the slayer, and we will say no more about it." Then do they haggle over the blood money, for the dead was a strong man, leaving many sons. Yet before Amaratavella sunrise, they put the fire to him, a little as the custom is, and the dead man comes to me. And he says no more about it. Aha, my children, the mugger knows, and my Malwa Jats are good people. They are too close, too narrow in the hand for my crop, croaked the adjunct. They waste not the polish of a crow's horn, as the saying is, and again, who can glean after a Malawai? Ah, I gleaned them, said the mugger. Now in Calcutta of the South in the old days, the adjunct went on, everything was thrown into the streets, and we picked and chose. Those were dainty seasons, but today they keep their streets as clean as the outside of an egg, and my people fly away. To be clean is one thing, to dust, sweep, and sprinkle 7 times a day wearies the very gods themselves. There was a down-country jackal, had it from a brother who told me that in Calcutta of the South all the jackals were as fat as otters in the rains, said the jackal, his mouth watering at the bare thought of it. Ah, but the white faces are there, the English, and they bring dogs from somewhere down the river in big boats, big fat dogs to keep those same jackals lean, said the adjunct. They are then as hard-hearted as these people? I might have known neither earth, sky, nor water shows charity to a jackal. I saw the tents of a white face last season, after the rains, and I also took a new yellow bridle to eat. The white faces do not dress their leather in the proper way. It made me very sick. That was better than my case, said the adjunct. When I was in my 3rd season, a young and bold bird, I went down to the river, where the big boats come in. The boats of the English are thrice as big as this village. He has been as far as Delhi, and says all the people there walk on their heads, muttered the jackal. The mugger opened his left eye and looked keenly at the adjunct. It is true, the big bird insisted. A liar only lies when he hopes to be believed. No one who had not seen those boats could believe this truth. That is more reasonable, said the mugger, and then we will pause.